Good morning and welcome back. This is World News coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Staria Strzemska. Today marks the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Nazi German Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration and extermination camp. Ceremonies honoring the victims are taking place on the grounds of the former camp in southern Poland, with the last living survivors as well as state officials in attendance. Approximately 1.1 million people were killed at the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp by Nazi Germany during World War II. The vast majority were Jews, but the victims also included Poles, Roma and Sinti people, and Soviet prisoners of war. On January 27, 1945, the Soviet army liberated around 7,500 prisoners still remaining in the main camp. Polish President Andrzej Duda, who is participating in the ceremonies, laid a wreath at the camp's infamous death wall and addressed the attendees. Commemorative events will also be held in other countries, including Israel, where a memorial will be held at Yad Vashem Holocaust Remembrance Center. The Israeli president will be in attendance there. Today, Auschwitz survivors return to the site of unspeakable atrocities. This anniversary comes as their number and the first-hand accounts they provide the window of time. Our chief political correspondent Aaron Damen has this very special report.
I was immediately hit by the smell of burning bodies. So I was already scared. I didn't know where it was.
Janina was just 14 years old when she arrived in a freight train at Nazi Germany's largest and deadliest concentration camp. When she arrived at the place and symbol of a brutal genocide.
They lined us up in a circle, and in the middle stood the Germans, young Germans, with cameras and took pictures of us. And they laughed terribly.
Through extensive archive footage and interviews, the suffering is laid bare of those who walked under the main gate of Auschwitz and the German words Arbeit macht frei. Work sets you free.
He came up to me and said, "Here's my toothbrush. I don't need it anymore. In 2 hours at the least, I'll fly out of here through the chimney. I will remember this for the rest of my life." They were taken straight to their deaths. Work sets you free. We used to say, freedom through the chimney.
(22-0-11).
Like other survivors, Teresa's arm has carried this tattoo for more than 80 years, ensuring she will never forget what happened to her. She entered the camp aged 16 on a day that changed her life forever.
When I came back, I thought I would never have children. Never. If they had to go through anything like what I went through, I don't want to repeat that.
Of the 1.3 million people deported to Auschwitz during the Second World War, 1.1 million were killed, mostly Jews, all in a place that existed for less than 5 years.
I wanted to live. I didn't believe I could make it. But somehow, I did.
A horror mark on history, never to be forgotten.
Całym życiu nie wytrzymałem. Ciężko mi się to. Ale wytrzymałem. Dlatego nazywam, że człowiek jest tak jak beton, jak stal.
Dla mnie najbardziej bolesnym wspomnieniem jest wspomnienie dzieci idących do gazy.
Nie zapomnę tej łyżki z tej strawy obozowej zupy, którą mnie kiedyś świnie nie chciałyby jeść. ale to smakowało jednak. I kęsek chleba obozowego nigdy nie zapomnę.
Well, of course, we're going back to this topic throughout the day. Just as a reminder, today marks 80 years since the liberation of the Nazi German concentration camp Auschwitz-Birkenau in 1945. For now, let's move on to the latest news. The European Union stands with the Belarusian people, and the weekend's presidential elections in the country were a sham. These are the words of Kaja Kallas, the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs. Callas also added that Moscow's growing hybrid warfare threat and putting pressure on Russia to end war in Ukraine are to be discussed at Monday's EU Foreign Affairs Council meeting.
Yesterday we had a good evening with Belarusian leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. We were talking about the sham elections that happened in Belarus, and of course we are standing with the Belarusian people. Belarus is still high on the European agenda. Today in the morning we will have a discussion over hybrid threats. We see things happening in the Balticsea. We see hybrid action all around Europe. We need to raise awareness. We need to discuss what more can we do in order to avoid this. Then we have a discussion on Ukraine. I expect a decision to roll over the sanctions we have. And then, of course, it is good that we discuss what more can we do, putting pressure on Russia to end this war. It's also good that President Trump has put the pressure on Russia to say that it's in their hands to end this war.
Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, is set to visit Poland today, where he'll meet with the Polish Prime Minister. The head of the German government will also commemorate the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Olaf Scholz is going to attend the memorial ceremonies held at the Auschwitz concentration and extermination camp. In the nearby city of Kraków, he will meet with the Prime Minister Donald Tusk to discuss security policy and international politics. The agenda for the meeting of the two leaders also includes economic and energy issues. Stockholm has seized a ship suspected of damaging a data cable running under the Baltic Sea from Sweden to Latvia. According to Swedish authorities, a preliminary investigation is pointing to sabotage. The incident took place less than a month after NATO launched a new mission in the Baltic Sea in response to attacks on underwater power and telecom cables. While Russia was not officially blamed for the cable damage, NATO chief Mark Rutte said the military alliance would step up its monitoring of Moscow-linked ships that have no clear ownership and are used to carry embargoed oil products. And we continue with the same story. The Latvian foreign minister has commented on the incident, saying that no data was lost due to damage.
Yesterday early morning, data cable has been significantly damaged. The good news are that our operator is a state company of manager of the data cables was so well prepared that we have not suffered any loss of data or transmission. So the operational procedures and the crisis scenario worked. In the same time, of course, as we saw, there was a day-long effort to clarify which ship has been responsible. So we have certain progress, but I cannot explain in detail because, of course, it's classified information.
President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky has announced the appointment of Major General Mihailo Drapati to head the Hortytsia group of forces currently engaged in some of the most brutal clashes against Russia. Zelensky also added that Drapati will continue as commander of land forces, the largest component of the armed forces of Ukraine.
Soon it will be 6 months of our active operations in the Kursk region aimed at protecting Ukrainian land. We are maintaining a buffer zone on Russian territory to safeguard Sumy and Kharkiv from Russian offensives. Major General Mihailo Drapati has been assigned to lead the Hortytsia operational strategic group of forces, currently deployed in areas seeing the most intense fighting. At the same time, Drapati will retain his position as commander of the land forces, the largest component of our armed forces.
The Polish Foreign Ministry condemned what it has called sham presidential elections that took place on Sunday in Belarus. In a post on X, the ministry said that the vote violated basic democratic procedures.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs expresses disappointment at the presidential election in Belarus, which was held today in violation of basic democratic procedures. Due to the actions of the Belarusian authorities, independent candidates were prevented from taking part in the elections.
After its initial opposition, Colombia has decided to accept U.S. Army planes with undocumented migrants. After Bogota blocked the first planes from landing, Donald Trump ordered immediate tariffs on Colombian goods and forced the country into submission. The White House press secretary has said that the events make clear to the world that America is respected again. Donald Trump has begun deportation of undocumented migrants from the U.S. and hopes that other countries cooperate in accepting their citizens back. Colombia wanted to block the transfers, which prompted the U.S. administration to slap 25% tariffs on Colombian goods and threatened to raise them to 50% in a week. Trump also imposed a travel ban for Colombian citizens. After that, Bogota announced that the deportation flights from the U.S. had resumed. Thousands of displaced Palestinians had begun to return home to the Gaza Strip for the first time since the war between Israel and Hamas started. The return follows a ceasefire agreement between the two sides of the conflict. Displaced Gaza residents who have been sheltering in tent camps and school-turned-shelters for over a year began their journey back home on foot on Monday to reunite with their loved ones in the northern part of the Strip, which has largely been destroyed by 15 months of Israeli bombardment. The return is part of the ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel to release Israeli hostages held by Hamas and allow Palestinians to return to northern Gaza. More than 1.5 million Palestinians have been displaced since the start of the war. France is lifting some sanctions against Syria, French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said on Monday. After the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime in Syria, the European Union is ready to turn the page and begin the process of easing sanctions for the new Syrian government. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas stated during the start of the foreign ministers' meeting in Brussels that the bloc would agree to begin easing the restrictions placed on the country. Under Assad, Syria was one of the most heavily sanctioned countries in the world. In Poland, Sunday marked the 33rd annual Great Orchestra of Christmas charity. Across the country, over 100,000 volunteers spent the day collecting donations to purchase life-saving medical equipment. This year, the donations will go towards equipment for pediatric, oncology and hematology wards. As is now tradition, the Great Orchestra of Christmas Charity ended the drive with a grand finale. This year, the orchestra managed to collect over 42 million euro, over 700,000 more than last year. The charity brings together volunteers across the country who spent one Sunday in January raising money on the streets of towns and cities across Poland. Private and public organizations participate as well, holding auctions of items such as medals won by Poland's national sports teams. Lucky bidders also get a chance to compete for experiences, such as trips to the Polish mountains or getting a celebrity to clean their house. The charity, organized by Jerzy Owsiak, has been a part of the holiday season in Poland since 1993. Throughout its history, the organization has raised over €500 million to help the treatment of children affected by a variety of diseases. And with this, we conclude World News. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for more World Talks coming up next.